Good evening, everyone. For those of you right in the back there, that wall is going to come down, so you guys might want to go out to the simulcast area, just in the back of the gallery, that away. Welcome, everyone. We're really glad to have you here tonight. Welcome to the Autodesk Gallery and Design Night. I'm Jason Metalcats, and I'm with Autodesk, and we're just so glad to have you here for Design Night all about biomimicry. We have a couple of really terrific speakers for you tonight. But before I get to that, I just wanted to mention that our next Design Night is exactly a month from now, March 7th, with the theme of Illuminate. And we're going to have, we're really excited, we're going to have Leo Villarreal, who's the artist for the Bay Lights project. He'll be speaking here next month. So be sure to get your tickets early. We sold out tonight, turned a lot of people away at the door, so we hope to see all of you guys here on March 7th. So our first speaker, speaking of the Bay Lights, he is a longtime fan of San Francisco. He wanted me to make sure I mentioned that. And I take it not a native, since he's a fan. He's from Texas. We won't hold that against him. He's been involved in a lot of businesses and other things that you may have heard of. Cho Chocolate, he started that business, a wonderful chocolate factory down the street. He also started World Headquarters, which is a gallery on Treasure Island. He's an artist himself, and pertinent to his talk tonight, he's a board member of Illuminate the Arts, which is the group behind the Bay Lights project. So he's going to spend a few minutes talking to us about Bay Lights. Please welcome Timothy Childs.
That's a great intro. So, can you hear me? Okay, great. So I usually talk really loud on microphones, so I just want to make sure I'm not blowing everybody out. So tonight represents something super great for us. And before I get going, let's get that going. I think they turned it off. So before we get going, I just want a big thank you to Autodesk, and especially to Jason, who's just been absolutely an amazing partner, who just kind of reached out to us and said, hey, we've got some amazing resources here, and how can we help make the vision a reality? And we just want to say on behalf of the entire Bay Lights crew and everybody in San Francisco, thank you, Jason. And it's an amazing thing they do here. For a round of applause for the Autodesk crew and Jason. So it's really incredible to be here on a couple of reasons. One, this is one of my favorite rooms and one of my favorite buildings, and definitely my favorite city in the United States. And it's great to talk to you quickly for about 50 minutes, I think I've got, about the Bay Lights. And what's kind of great about tonight, usually when I talk about the Bay Lights, I usually have to have a deck of slides and some video to kind of imagine, if you will, this is what it looks like. Well, tonight represents a really super great night, is that I don't have to do that tonight, because right to your left, it's there. And so it's a really stupendous time, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly tell you a little bit about, I'm not going to even tell you about the Bay Lights because it's right there, and if you want to find out more, we have a little table set up, and you can learn all about the details, and you go online and find that. You can go to thebbaylights.org and find all the information. But what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to talk quickly about some of the goals that we had of the project, and kind of how it relates to the topic of the theme tonight, which is biomimicry. Yeah? So one of the things that we were really excited about this project was that we just love the talent and the amazing creativity and the can-do-ness of the city. And we felt that San Francisco as a whole really doesn't have its recognition as a major capital A art player in the world. Right? It's a tech player and music, you know all that stuff, but it's just really not on the map there. It's just kind of like always a little bit below LA. Well, one of the things we really wanted to do with this project was to try to make a capital A art project out of it and really make San Francisco a shining beacon of world-class art in the world. And that's kind of one of our major drivers. And I think when we're done with it, I think that our goal will be achieved. So quickly, I called Leo a little bit before this talk, and just to kind of make sure I'm reflecting his ideas correctly. I'm really into the way Leo does his programming and the generative systems he puts in place. But I just want to capture some of the ideas around it and tie it into what's going on with biomimicry. So what we're doing is we're not doing Leo is not taking kind of a one-to-one relationship with biomimicry, and there's many different approaches, right? But what it is he's kind of taking the cues from nature, right? The birds flying, you know, the traffic, the flow of the traffic, the ripples of the water, the reflections of the water, the reflections of the lights on the water, which was a new effect that we didn't realize, and really try to distill those things down to its core nature, its essence, right? And just trying to kind of come up with an algorithm, right? So an algorithm of generatively derived patterns, and kind of distill them in its kind of deepest nature, and then try to find its true meaning and learning from the natural patterns, and then once he kind of boils them down to their essence, it gives them some tools to play around with. So this isn't kind of a scientific visualization. It's not a, you know, taking video and mapping it onto a bunch of pixels that are one of the most complex and strange and interesting palettes to deal with, just the length of it and the spacing of stuff. But it's a sandbox for him to take these patterns and then try to see how they work on this giant palette, and then lay one over and the other over the other over. So what he's doing is he's not taking all this input from all these sensors around. He actually is the sensor, right? Everybody says, is it interactive and all this? Well, yeah, it is interactive, but it's interactive by the artist. This is art. And so he's taking the patterns, distilling it down into algorithms, and then trying them, see how they flow, and kind of identifying each one of these different patterns, like birds flocking, perhaps, but an abstraction of that, to maybe you'll see ripple patterns. But then they're going to be start overlaying on top of themselves. So around 10 o'clock tonight, he's going to start programming it tonight. So I want to invite everybody to stick their heads out the window here or walk along the waterfront if it's not raining, and just watch him play with it. This is a really, really unique time. This isn't a piece of art that you can just put a, you know, a black piece of velvet over and reveal it. It's public. So this is a really unique opportunity to actually watch him play with it and get a sense of it, like a musical instrument, like he's tuning it. So you'll see him try speeds of patterns and then try the density of things, you know, moving, and then overlay something like that. And kind of in closing about his patterning, so it's all generative. So he's going to find the stuff that he likes. He's going to say, okay, set that up. And he sets this up. And then it's all going to just run. And it's never going to repeat itself, ever. So it's all generative. So it's one pattern laying over and over. And what that's going to cause is a set of unforeseen circumstances, right? And that's where really the magic, the essence of the piece really, it kind of comes out and has its own identity through. So it's really a great chance to kind of watch the beginnings of this. So we're going to be, Leo is going to be programming between now and Monday. So along the waterfront, like around 8 or 10. Don't tell anybody, shh, right? So, and that's pretty much it. And I want to encourage you guys to come to our booth right here. A little thing. Thank you, Jason, for setting up. And we have this great program called Gift a Light. And you can go and buy a light, just like you buy a star, but it's actually something that's real that you can touch and send to your friends. And you can sign up for that there. And just on closing, I just want, on behalf of the Illuminate the Arts team and the Baylights team, we want to say thank you very much for this opportunity. And next month, Leo, the real meat here, will be actually go into great detail about this project, and I suggest that you guys come to that. So thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was great. Really great. All right. Thank you, Timothy. Now on to our featured speaker for tonight. For all you biomimicry fans and biomimicry curious, we're really, really excited to have Dr. Dayna Baumeister here tonight. She has a doctorate in, careful how I say this, organismic biology and ecology. She's worked in biomimicry with Janine Benes, who's well known in the field, since 1998, as a business catalyst, an educator, a researcher, and a design consultant. Together they formed the Biomimicry Guild, the Biomimicry Institute, and Biomimicry 3.8. And together, these fertilize the movement of biomimicry into an innovative practice, a philosophy that really helps to meet the world's pressing sustainability challenges. She designed and teaches the world's first biomimicry professional certification program, and she's taken a decade of experience and compiled it into the Biomimicry Resource Handbook, a seed bank of best practices. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Dr. Dayna Baumeister.
Now am I talking? There we go. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for coming. It's kind of strange to know that I've got just a quarter of the audience here in the room, and then there's some other people somewhere out there enjoying the presentation. So hopefully you'll get a chance to connect with me at some point. I'd love to meet all of you. Don't expect me to remember your name, but I hope to have a chance to talk with folks that are interested in learning more about biomimicry. The good news is there's actually a lot of people who are here this evening that are connected with biomimicry, that have taken some of our programs, that are part of the San Francisco Bay Network, that are some of our staff. Am I doing that? And hopefully you'll be able to connect with them as well. So what I'd like to talk about tonight is innovation. Right? I can imagine that being here in the Bay Area, you're incredibly interested in the topic of innovation. And of course, as we know, the world is demanding and asking for more and more innovation. You know, how are we going to move forward as a species? How are we going to solve the problems that we have today? And in what space do they reside? And where do we find the solutions that we need? So then we have to ask ourselves the question of, well, where does innovation come from? If this is what we want, where does it come from? And we tend to think that, well, it's some amazing thing that fires in our neurons, that it's a human process, and if we fire the right combination, we'll be creative, we'll be innovative, and new ideas will emerge. Well, while it is true that we have that capability in our brains, I'd like to actually let you know that innovation is the oldest process on the planet, the oldest biological process, that is. And in fact, innovation is 3.8 billion years old. And so I want to talk a little bit about what exactly that means. But in order to get your head around what 3.8 billion years actually means, I want to take the age of the planet. And the age of the planet is 4.5 billion years. That's how long Earth has been here. Okay? But let's compress it into 1 year, so that the Earth is born just past midnight on January 1st, and we're standing right now just before midnight on December 31st. Okay? So that's 4.5 billion years. We can all get our head around a year. 4.5 billion sounds like nothing when you think of like our defense budget or our deficit. So let's put 4.5 billion in perspective. So for January and up until February 25th, it's just the primordial soup. Life's birthday. So life shows up 3.8 billion years ago on February 25th. So it's just that, the volcano thing going on. So since February 25th, life has been slowly and quickly at times colonizing all the corners of the planet. March 28th, 1 month after life shows up, photosynthesis occurs. And with photosynthesis, we see this rapid conversion of the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere, the sequestration of that, and the production of oxygen, which completely changes the atmosphere and changes the rules of the game for living on the planet. Then in April and May and June and July and half of August, it is nothing but single-celled organisms living on the planet. That's it, little single-celled organisms. And it's not until August 16th that we have multicellular organisms showing up. Not very long ago, really, if we look at our year. Then you have to wait a whole nother month for sex to happen, right? So all the way into September, and that's where we start seeing sexual reproduction. Now, when that happens, when you start mixing ideas together, because that's where innovation's really going on, all of this is an incredibly innovative process that life has employed. But when you start adding sex to the mix, now, think about that, right? Okay, now you've got a whole new recombinant possibility. So from September and into October and November, amazing things start cooking. We see the fungi show up in November. Very quickly thereafter, we've got fish, November 20th. Land plants, so we start colonizing terra firma, November 22nd. The insects, November 24th. Amphibians showed up this month, at the beginning of this month, and amphibians actually preceded the reptiles. So the reptiles have been around since December 6th. Mammals have been here only since December 13th. Okay? Birds, even shorter, December 18th. And you'll be surprised about this. Flowers, they've only been here 11 days. That's it. But the explosion and the innovation that has happened in the last 11 days with just flowers alone is absolutely amazing. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of flowers have a really tight coevolutionary relationship with beetles. There's over 1 million beetle species. So this amazing, innovative process has occurred just in the last 11 days. Now the dinosaurs, they went extinct a really long time ago, right? Like fossils, we can't imagine how long ago that was. Well, it was a really bad Christmas day when the asteroid hit the planet, okay? 6:30 p.m. is when the asteroid hit and wiped out the era of the dominance of reptiles and dinosaurs on this planet. So let's fast forward a little bit and let's look at hominids. So not even Homo sapiens, but hominids, the first two-legged primates to walk on this planet. Before I change the slide, think about when you think they showed up. 12 and a half hours ago, right? So our ancestors, not even Homo sapiens sapiens, our ancestors showed up 12 and a half hours ago. Homo sapiens sapiens, how long can we lay claim to this planet? 24 minutes. 24 minutes have we been around, okay? Now, agriculture, which really changed everything. We went from being a hunter-gatherer world to ones where we stayed in place and we began to implement all these incredible innovations about staying in place. 1 minute. 10,000 years ago was 1 minute. Okay, so now we talk about the Industrial Revolution, which is really where we think innovation comes from now, right? The last 200 years and all this amazing stuff that we've been able to do with coal and oil and our brains and our computers and our technology. This is where all the answers are, right? All the answers for living here on this planet. Not even a full second, right? Right? That's as long as what we've got. That's where innovation. So now I have to ask you, are we the pinnacle of innovation? Of after 3.8 billion years, is this what we sort of stand proud about and say, look at what we've done? Right? So only 1 second of innovation is where we tend to rely on where we go look for answers. So if we want to be innovative, and that's what our world is demanding of all of us now, no matter who you are or what your background, we're all designers. We're all creating solutions for the future about what we do every day, what we do every week, what we do every month, in our work, in our play. Where are we going to get those answers, and how do we do it? Well, we have to quiet our cleverness, right? We have to first go, oh, I'm really, really young. I haven't been here very long. I'm a very young species. We're all very young species. And if we quiet our cleverness and go back into the mind of a child, when it's okay to ask questions, Mom, how do I live here? How do I do this? That's the headspace that we need to be in. Then we can go out and we can look at the 3.8 billion years of experience that the 30 million species or so that are on the planet today represent. And that's just 1% of all the species that have ever lived. So we're seeing the cream of the crop. We're seeing the success stories that thrive here and now. So imagine how different our world might look like and how innovation might be different if we embraced that wisdom. If we said, yeah, help us out, please. So ultimately, that's what we're about. We're about bringing biology, nature, life, those lessons of 3.8 billion years. Our business cards used to say, bringing 3.8 billion years of experience to your design table, right? Not 15 years or 18, whatever. And bridging that with design, innovation, and technology. And the magic that happens in the middle when you bring those two things together, is what we call biomimicry and biomimicry thinking. It is a lens, it is a framework, it is a way of seeing innovation in a way that fits on this planet, that's appropriate for Earth. So biomimicry is this practice of looking to the natural world. And we technically define it as the conscious emulation of nature's genius. And those 4 words are actually pretty important. They're carefully chosen. Conscious implies intent, that we actually make a choice to go out and ask nature for advice. Emulation is also a very, very important word because it's not a slavish imitation. It's not taking a dragonfly wing and making a really big scale of it and redesigning our helicopters. The laws of physics simply will not allow for that. Emulation is choosing the design principles, the guidelines that nature has to offer, and incorporating those in our designs. And then nature's genius is, it's based on 3.8 billion years. There's probably some things that have been worked out. The R&D has been done. There's some genius in that we could learn from. Now, biomimicry is also an emerging discipline, but with an ancient practice. So for those 23 minutes that we've been on the planet, we have actually asked the natural world, how do we fit in? How do we live here? It's unfortunate that in the last 200 years, when we've isolated ourselves, we've put up these concrete walls and pavement. I mean, how many of you can remember the last time that you walked on a non-man-made surface? We're separating ourselves from the natural world, and as a result, we're forgetting. We're forgetting to ask. And we're forgetting that we're not the only ones here on this planet. So for us, biomimicry has 3 really critical, important components that come together. There's the one that you hear about in the media all the time. This is the emulate piece. It's also thought of as bio-inspired. This is where you take some great ideas, you learn from those principles, and you apply them to products, to processes, to systems, to software, to transportation, and I'll share some examples with you. But that, in and of itself, is not enough. For us, we also believe that biomimicry has to have a reconnect component. Right? It's one thing to just look at it on a computer screen and identify the shapes and patterns. It's another thing to actually spend some time observing and reconnecting, creating that bridge once again. Because we are nature too, right? And building that is, we know it's good for human health. We know it's good for well-being. We know it's good for our minds and our spirits. But it also puts us back in that place of humbleness and cleverness, or quieting the cleverness, so that we can really engage and really deeply learn. And then the last piece is what we call the ethos piece, where you have to ask yourself, what's worth doing? If you only have a limited amount of time on this planet, what are the kinds of problems you want to solve? What is it that you really want to be doing? For us, it is addressing the social and environmental sustainability issues of our time. That's what's worth doing. Do you really want to spend all your time designing a cooler widget? And yeah, maybe it kind of looks like a butterfly or functions like a butterfly. But imagine if you saved a ton of energy, or you reduced the toxins, or you made it a healthier planet for all. So the ethos, the reconnect, and the emulate are all really, really important components of what makes biomimicry up. So when we look at biomimicry, we talk about taking care of examples or opportunities to look at forms, processes, and ecosystems. So on one case, we can look at what nature has made and emulate that form, that shape, or that structure. And that's pretty easy, well, not pretty easy, but it's easier to do because it's tangible. We can get our heads around it. And then there's the process piece, which is not just what nature has made, but how has she gone about making it? Where did the raw materials come from? Where did the energy go to file it? And then how does it fit in the larger ecosystem? What happens to it at the end of its life? How does it connect with other components of the system? All of these parts can be emulated by us as a species. So let me give you a few examples. This comes from a company in Germany. They're called Arnold Glass, and they were trying to address the challenge of over 100 million birds a year die from crashing into windows in Europe alone. All right, so in cities, I mean, that's a lot of birds. You don't see it because they're all swept up in the morning before you come to work, but they're hitting the glass and crashing down. So they ask themselves, well, how is it that a bird can fly through a forest and not hit a spider web? And it turns out that spiders weave fibers into their spider web that reflect ultraviolet light. And birds can see ultraviolet light. So when you put those ultraviolet fiber or ultraviolet reflecting fibers in glass, then birds will avoid it. But of course, we don't see ultraviolet light, so we see right through the glass. Right? So notice we're not spinning spider webs for our windows or farming spider webs, but we're taking the design principle and bringing it forward. Here's another example that comes from, thin film solar panels. While the plastic is a heck of a lot cheaper and easier to work with than silicon, it doesn't have the same efficiency. So what some researchers did is they looked at the surface texture of leaves, and they found out that surface texture actually helps curve the wavelength of light and sort of trap it in the leaf, so the leaf is more efficient. And now they're taking that same surface texture and putting it on the thin film plastics and improving the efficiency up to 50% greater by that simple lesson coming from the leaf. On a similar notion, this is a firefly. And so fireflies have these bioluminescent bacteria that live in their abdomens, all right, their tail here. And they looked at the integument, the skin over the tail, and they found that when you try to pass light through it, it actually magnifies the light. So this is a close-up of the abdomen. They then emulated that structure and put it on the surface coating over LEDs, and they got a 60% increase in brightness out of the LED by changing that surface property thanks to the firefly. This one comes out of Denmark. This is, of course, too small for the human eye to see, so it's a schematic, but this is what's happening in all of our cells. All animal cells have this special pore called an aquaporin, and it passively filters the water that goes in and out of our cells, and it's very selective in doing so. But note I said passive, so that means it doesn't require energy. It's incredibly efficient. And these scientists and this company have now made a film full of these little tiny pores that have the same hourglass shape. It's an hourglass. And they're able to filter out salt from salt water. They're able to filter out pollutants from water without having to force them through the membrane with a pump. Right? So think about that need all over the world, keeping our water clean today. This example comes from China. There's a city in China that apparently has the worst traffic in the world. And they're trying to address the issue of the lights and how do you time the lights in such a way. And we all know that when traffic kind of slows down that you can have the little sensors in the road that say go, but how do you do that on a whole city scale so it's not like, oh, darn it, I made the green but I got the next red. And it ultimately creates this gridlock. Well, they've used what's called swarm theory and understanding how the information flows in bacterial colonies, in ant colonies, in the way birds flock or schools of fish school. And they're taking that information to program the lights in such a way that there's the optimal flow between the lights. And they have reduced wait times at lights by using this by 28%. And so not only is the people in the city happier, there's that much less idling time, that much less fuel being consumed, that much less pollution and smog in the city. This next example, it comes from the slime you find on fish, right? You never know where your example may come from. And fish actually grow a slime on their surface. It's a biofilm. And it's got beneficial bacteria that live on the surface of the fish. And that keeps bad bacteria at bay. And this company, Luritech, has actually created a paint that they put on boats and ship hulls to actually promote the growth of biofilms. And so these biofilms actually improve the fuel efficiency because they prevent things like barnacles and mussels and other large objects from attaching to the bottom of these ships. Far better than the copper-based chemical paints that tend to be used today that kill everything. right, and cause a lot of problems in the sea. So here they're actually saying, hey, the good guys, we want you, and please help us do this work. Now, the last example that I have for you is, this comes out of a university in Portugal. On the left here, what's happening is these are humpback whales that are feeding. And the way they feed is they swim in such a way that really, really tight loops, and they blow bubbles. And they create a net of bubbles around a school of fish, and then they swim up through the middle, and they gobble up all the fish, right? Because they're trapped inside the bubbles. Well, this university has figured out a system by laying tubes on the bottom of the sea to create bubble nets. Now, you no longer have turtles can swim through the bubbles, no problem. Dolphins swim through. You're not catching anything you don't want. And they literally, it's kind of strange, they vacuum up the fish out of the middle of the bubble net, but the fish come in live so they can sort them, and whatever they don't need, they can put back in the sea. Right? So talk about a much more sustainable way to do fishing. So that's just a sample. We have a database that's well over 800 different examples of what's happening around the world. And as you can see, there's all sorts of applications, and there are applications beyond what I can present here that include things like organizational development. The Bank of England is looking at better ways to do finance by understanding how nature does resilience. I mean, the opportunities and the potential to learn from nature are huge. So where do you start, right? Well, here. Right? The good news, right? Right outside your door, there is plenty of nature. But even inside, we have opportunities. We have a database called asknature.org, actually that Autodesk was a very critical seed funder for, so thank you, Autodesk, for that. And on Ask Nature, you can find biological strategies by the function. You type in, how does nature communicate? How does nature create color? How does nature create stiffness? And you can find examples. But you can also just get outside. And I do want to let you know about a couple of things that we do offer if you're curious and you want to learn more. We have an online foundational course, and at our table we actually have some discount codes. If you want to take that foundational course, you can grab one of those cards on your way out. We also offer an 8-month program for people who want to bring biomimicry back to their world, their sphere and their realm. And it's actually being taught right here up in Mill Valley this year. And so if you're interested, please find one of us and we'll get you signed up, because that course is starting pretty soon. And then I was introduced and mentioned the 2-year program, and a couple of the graduates from my program are also here this evening, the Certified Biomimicry Professional Program, and we travel the world. We have 6 one-week site visits, and we go to South Africa, and we go to Costa Rica, and we go to Arizona, and we go to Vancouver Island. And then we have online courses, and it's an amazing way to completely immerse yourself in the field of biomimicry. But ultimately, what this is all about is life creating conditions conducive to life. And what we strive for, and I hope all of you strive for in any of your endeavors, is to create conditions conducive to life. I mean, wouldn't that be sort of the ultimate goal, to take the word life out here and say, I create conditions, my company, my designs, my work, my effort creates conditions conducive to life. That's a legacy for us all to leave. Because we are nature. Right? There isn't a separation. This is an artificial construct that we've put around ourselves. And therefore, everything we do is actually natural. The question is it well adapted or is it maladapted? And I have news for you. The 99.9% of species that did go extinct, they either had bad luck, because they were around an asteroid or a volcano or something like that, or their strategies were maladapted. And we are not immune to the laws of natural selection. It will catch up with us if we don't make our strategies fit in. So to do that, we need to remember curiosity, awe, and wonder. This is the classic biomimic position. Right? This is the place to find yourself, down on the ground and checking things out. And a lot of it is finding that child within us, that place of curiosity and wonder. We all have it. We just have to revisit it. So who will you ask for advice next time you want to be innovative and you want to come up with solutions? The good news is that fortunately we are surrounded by genius. We are completely surrounded. 30 million species, and we've only named 1.8 million of them. Imagine if we started asking that question. So, which mentors will inspire you next? Thank you. Yeah, yep.
Thank you, Dayna. Wow, that was fantastic.
And I stayed within my 25-minute window.
Wow,
it was hard.
Even better.
Really hard.
So we would love to do a few minutes of questions. So I'm going to pass over this mic to Aviva, and if you have a question, raise your hand, and off we go.
Hi there. Great talk.
Thank you.
That was, I knew nothing about biomimicry, and now I feel like
I promise you, actually, you will now begin to see it everywhere. You will never see the world the same way again. I should have warned you.
I'm going to get down right now in that position. I just had a question about this biomimicry clinic. What goes on there? I'm just kind of curious.
The program?
Yes.
The training programs?
Yes.
So the Biomimicry Specialist Program is for folks who say, hey, I'm an architect, I always want to be an architect, but I really want to design with biomimicry. Or I'm really interested in computers, or I'm a teacher, or whatever it might be. And they're all designed for working professionals. And we have for the 8-month program, we have 3 on-site visits over the 8-month, and the rest is taught online. So we teach the methodology. Like, how do you frame your question in a way that you can actually go ask nature? We call it biologizing the question. You couldn't go out and say, hey, nature, can you tell me how to make a better computer? You know, most biologists would be like, why are you talking to me? So you've got to ask your question in a way. So we train that. We train how you access it from the biological world. We actually have a part of it that we call the virtual design lab, where you take what you've learned, and with mentorship and coaching and working with your peers, you actually get your hands dirty. We have folks that are designing products, some that designed workshops, one guy did this. We have a whole thing called Life's Principles, which is sort of the big principles that we can learn from life. And he built a whole program to vet all of the designs of his company through that process. And so it's very, very creative and designed for how you can bring it to your world. The 2-year program is designed for folks who want biomimicry to be their career. This is what we do. And I just graduated 2 weeks ago, my 2nd cohort in Costa Rica. It was a very heartfelt experience, life transforming. And these are folks that will, make their lives doing it. Zainab here is on the faculty, and she graduated from the 1st year of the program. She's a business person. And then Taryn over here taught the Biomimicry Specialist Program last year, so if you have questions for her, you can ask her. And it is about immersing yourself in the natural world, but also what are the tools. In the 2-year program, we teach communication skills, we teach interdisciplinary work, we accept biologists and engineers and designers and business people. We've got folks now, our 2 programs have graduated almost 100 people around the world, representing 23 countries. They speak like 35 languages amongst them all. And it's this incredible network of people really wanting to make a difference in the world. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking.
So how do you connect these design principles that are inspired, borrowed, modeled on nature, and talk to the bean counters in the organization that say, all I care about is ROI?
Yeah.
How does that communication happen?
Well, it depends on the circumstance. And in some cases, we can come in and solve a challenge that's been a huge financial issue. And one of the ways is because nature's like a completely different way of seeing the challenge. And so what's been, okay, we're on this path, and oh, you mean over here is an idea. And in fact, a gentleman named Julian Vincent got together with some other biologists, and they did a comparison of nature's ideas to the human patent database, and they only found an 11% overlap. So 89% of the time, nature had ideas that no human had ever come up with to solve a very similar challenge. So on some cases, you can make the case from an innovation point of view. But we've also had examples where we've had cost savings, like this is a different way of manufacturing. You know, as a matter of fact, you can eliminate the entire heating and drying process if you go with this route. And so there are ways, but what's more challenging around biomimicry is it's a very holistic, systems-based way. So it's not like, okay, very clearly, we saved you $3.8 million. You know, that's really hard to do. But we see things like employee engagement and entirely new ways. We're like, departments like, oh, I've never even talked to that department before. You know, so all these things are the value add that comes from having this approach. But you're right. I mean, at some point, you've got to convince someone to sign on the dotted line, and that's the ultimate challenge. And honestly, companies that are the laggard ones that need to see someone else prove it first are going to be much harder to reach. The best companies doing this in the world are the ones who really want to be innovative, you know, who really do stretch their imaginations.
Thanks. Hi.
Yeah.
I was outside for a while, so I'm sorry if I missed if you already said this, but I'm really curious. What do you think about our level of mal or well adaptation, like as humanity to? Because I feel like you made a metaphor of how, like the short while that we've been around as humans, but on the other hand, it feels to me like we're destroying the world in such a fast. What is your opinion about that?
Yeah, so the question was about how maladapted or well adapted are we, and the fact that we've been here only 23 minutes. The other side of that coin is if we were to all be sent to a penal colony on the moon tomorrow, it would only take another 23 minutes to hide all traces of humanity from the planet, right? So that's one thing that's like, wow, really? Except for some nuclear waste things. Unfortunately, that takes a little longer. But one of the unique things that we have as a species is this incredible creative mind and our ability to communicate with each other and to foresee and to have a larger extension of the feedback loops than most organisms do. Right? We've got these models, we have these systems, and so we actually have the ability to act and change our behavior in such a way that those kinds of things can become more well adapted. But you're right. I am saying that we are on the extinction path. I mean, I'm definitely saying that. But we don't have to be on the extinction path. I think we have the opportunity to change that if we quiet our cleverness and make some different choices about how we move forward. So hopefully that answers your question. Great. One more back here?
Hi, you had mentioned financial resiliency and biomimicry, and I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about how the financial community is looking at that.
Yeah, sure. It's actually a fairly new endeavor for us. We just did a conference in Zurich last August on biomimicry and finance. We've started working with Hazel Henderson on something we call ethical biomimicry finance. And it's around taking life's principles, which are things like be locally attuned and responsive, use feedback loops, leverage or cultivate cooperative relationships, or evolve to survive, and there's a much longer list of them. And actually the slideshow that's out there with the organisms on it has some of the life's principles popping up, so you can go and read some more. And embedding those into where money flows, how money flows, and how we use our money. Now, there's no equivalent of money in the natural world. So it's a different way of thinking about how we put value on what we do in this world. And it's a big topic, and I can certainly talk with you more about it. That's one realm in which we're working. The other space is this idea of resilience, and it's become a pretty hot buzzword. Resilience was born in the field of ecology, understanding how ecosystems come back from disturbance, and we are seeing things like the Bank of England and other organizations saying, what are the design guidelines that an ecosystem uses to embody resilience, and how can we as a species do that, or we as a company, or we as an organization do that as well. And actually just finishing in the Biomimicry Professional Program, we had a group that focused specifically on that topic alone, resilience, and spent 20 months developing a whole body of work around how we can learn from resilience for organizations. So can't answer that question really short, but there's a lot that's starting to happen. But I'd say finance is sort of the last to get on board in the world of biomimicry. Okay, are we done?
We are done.
So if you have more questions, you can find one of us, but thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, really, really great, important, and informative. Thank you so much, Dayna. So thanks to Dayna and Timothy. The Bay Area Biomimicry Network is here, and if you want to know more about biomimicry or get involved in the local network, they have sign-up sheets at the biomimicry table, which is just on the other side of the food, or at the front desk, and they're going to be having a March event if you want to join that. Don't forget to eat some tacos from Picante, play Biomimicry Go Fish straight back here, build an adaptive house over on the side here, check out the Bay Lights testing right out the window, and please join us on March 7th.